Good morning. Absolutely beautiful morning. Still a little chilly, 35 degrees out, but looks like it's going to stay that way. We've got a long ways to go. We've only got about maybe 15 acres done, looks like. Now that I can see it in the daylight. We've got to finish this 70, then we've got another 50 across the street that we've got to finish today. Should be kind of an early day, but we don't really want to keep the guys hauling us fertilizer out until 1 o'clock. So we'll figure on finishing these two fields. Dad is back at the farm. He broke a shank on the anhydrous bar, and also has a flat tire. So he's fixing that this morning. Then he'll get going. He'll start following my strips with that anhydrous bar. Start putting some more nitrogen in these strips. At least the batteries weren't shot. I've noticed with this strip till bar is that when it's really cold out, the hydraulic line, well, the hydraulics don't really run as good as they should. Those meters are ran from a hydraulic motor, and when it's cold out, they don't like to run the greatest, and that's what's dropping my fertilizer out at what rate I want it to. And so they sit there, they don't really turn smooth, they just kind of chug when it's cold out. And it'll be dropping anywhere between 200 to 500 pounds per acre when my target is 386. So that's supposed to be turning pretty smooth. That right there, that camera is showing the bottom of this air cart, and those are the little meter rolls where the fertilizer drops into, and then it spits it out as it comes around. Depending on how many revolutions per acre you have, that sets your rate. Well, obviously that's not very accurate when it's sitting there chugging along like that, but there's really nothing I can do about it until everything gets warmed up. And what I like to do while I'm loading is I come to the back of the cart, or back of the bar, and I'll check to make sure all these bolts, anywhere they could be, are still in the machine, because for some reason this bar has a habit of breaking those if they're not greased every 10 minutes, and they do fall out of there. And I've had one of the row units, this whole system, this bracket here holding on everything, the coulters, the shanks, the opening wheel, that whole system just broke off of the bar, kind of just laid up on top of another one. And it was on this farm, actually. I noticed in my rear view mirror that I was only making 7 strips instead of 8, and I thought, what in the world's going on? got out and one of the row units was just laying on top of the bar basically, and I was like, oh, that's a problem. And that was a fun fix, because obviously you can't lift those by hand. So then we had to run a loader tractor down here to be able to lift that row unit up and get it right in the right spot to get that bolt back in. While I'm letting that stuff fill, I'll go ahead and give you a rundown on what this implement actually does and kind of give you an understanding of what's going on here. This cart is pressurized with air. This is a giant fan that kicks on with the hydraulics, pressurizes the tanks, and shoots air down through these tubes as well. We'll fill the tank with fertilizer, close the lids, turn the fan on, it'll pressurize. We've got a pedal hooked into the tractor that'll start one of these meters that'll drop fertilizer down into those tubes. The fan will then blow the fertilizer through the tubes to each an individual shank. And that fertilizer will then drop down through and come out the little hole right behind this shank into the ground. So that's what a strip till bar does. You don't have to have dry fertilizer. You can literally just use it to make strips in the ground so that you're not tilling all of the dirt. You're leaving a little bit of space between where you're actually tilling. It's more of a conservation thing. You're not getting as much erosion. You're leaving trash on top of the ground. The seagulls have found me. Got about 100 seagulls following the strip till bar now. Anytime you're doing tillage, you're working bugs and stuff, and worms and stuff out of the ground, and they just follow right behind you, fly over you, crap all over the tractor. I'm actually kind of surprised it took them this long to find me, because the river is literally not even a mile to my right. I forgot to mention, if anybody was wondering how I'm keeping these rows so straight, we have Autosteer on the tractor, meaning we put a globe on the top of the tractor that talks with satellites in space, and it shoots down and it gets our location via GPS, and I can go on the monitor and create a track. All I have to do is drive one time through the field. I set an A point, I'll drive down the field, set my B point, and then it'll follow that exact path every time. And all I gotta do is push one button. I'll show you here. I push a button, and it takes over the steering for me. And there you go. I never have to touch the steering wheel until I come to the end of the row, obviously, and then I gotta turn. I do all the end rows by hand. You can set it up in Autosteer, but everybody that I know just drives the ends because it's kind of a pain to get the end rows put on. I don't know. I've never tried it. I'd probably like it if I just tried it. The steering does the job too. Yeah, I can show you on the monitor the tracks I've got. Right there, it shows the little tractor, shows that my GPS is active. And when I get down to the end here, I'll skip this row to the right. And as soon as this line turns white, I'll hit the Autosteer button and it'll follow that exact track. Technology, it's amazing. I tell you what, if we didn't have Autosteer, we would not be strip tilling. And the reason for that is, with this GPS, we can come around next spring after I make these passes. After I put in all these strips, we can come back with the planter. The GPS will keep the planter exactly in those rows where we're putting this fertilizer down. If you were steering yourself, there are times when you're not exactly on the row. Sometimes, especially in this bean stubble, I can't even see the rows hardly. It just wouldn't work the same. So because of the GPS and the Autosteer, I think strip till will really take off, and a lot of guys will start going to it. There's a lot of guys around here that started going to it already. Get out of here, you freeloaders. We just finished getting the strip till bar filled. We're gonna go ahead and get the wagon hooked up because it needs to go to another field. Always a fun challenge getting that hooked up because this entire thing is so rusted and seized up from all the fertilizer that it's pretty much unusable. Oh, he's got the wheels chalked. That would have been bad. Well, it wouldn't have been bad. It just would have been a little bumpy. It's probably going to be in the way, but it'll be fine. It's time for me to go get lunch. 3 o'clock. I just really don't feel like putting endros on it in the dark. And it gets dark at 5:30 now, so I'll grab something quick. This might mean absolutely nothing to you guys, but as far as the GPS and Autosteer go, there are 3 levels that you can get through John Deere. Well, I don't know if it's through John Deere, but we do have a John Deere Starfire Globe that has a certain serial activation on it. You can either get SF1, SF2, or RTK. I think you can actually go lower than that, like WAS or whatever it's called. But anyway, SF1, SF2, RTK. SF1 is your basic package. It's not as accurate. It'll give you GPS readings, stuff like that. You can use guidance on it, but it's not going to be super accurate. SF2 is pretty good. I think it's within a couple inches accuracy. You know, that's what we had the year before. But we just upgraded to RTK, which is, it has to be direct line of sight to the towers. It's sub-inch accuracy the entire, I mean, as long as the track is on the computer, it will stay that way. It's supposedly what it's supposed to do. Well, this field has been taking me so long because I've been having problems with the GPS, kicking me off of RTK, and then telling me that the GPS is incorrect or the wrong option or whatever, and taking me all the way down to WAS, which is either SF1 or below. And so I can't use the Autosteer. Finally, I got tired of driving around the field until I got RTK so that I could keep going. I went into the monitor and got into the settings and realized that you never checked the box that says, hey, if you run out of RTK or if you lose RTK, we'll drop you down to SF2. You never ticked that box. And so it was just, as soon as I would lose RTK, it would just drop all GPS basically. After all those headaches and wasting a lot of time driving around until I got satellite GPS again, I think it'll work now. I have RTK right now, but when I get close to this tree line, I lose signal, and so it just drops everything. And I want to keep my Autosteer on because I want my rows to stay straight, especially on this AB curve. I mean, it curves to the right the whole way across the field. I don't want these to be off, but this has just been frustrating. But now that I've ticked that box on that setting, saying, okay, it'll drop down just a level instead of dropping me completely, it should work. If you're wondering how I stay on the rows just driving manually, I basically just keep my seat between those rows. I don't drive with I don't pay attention to the front of the tractor at all. I just basically make sure my body is between those rows. So if I'm going up a hill, the front end of the tractor will actually be up like this, and I'll be driving, but my seat will be straight with the row. I've completely lost my rows here. I think I found them again. Love the MacDon header for a green head, but holy cow, does it make it hard to see rows sometimes. It's a lot easier in corn stalks rather than the bean stubble, because you can actually see a row with the corn stalks. On bean stubble, like I was saying, that MacDon header just gets, literally slides across the ground, so there's hardly no stem left, and you're just blind half the time. That's why this Autosteer is so great as well. We are finally done there. I gotta turn that off because those. All right. My guidance is still on. It's beeping at me. Anyway, we're done with that field. So we are gonna be on to the next one. I hate starting fields in the dark, but we're stripping, so it's pretty late. Had myself a Black Rifle espresso. Gonna run as long as I can. Listen to some Office. That's gonna be it for me for tonight.